we're going to do here, these are folks that in different ways and in different styles, which will tell you, are thinking the students thing. How, I know all of you will time around that word. Your word was high school graduation. You made a pivot to post-secondary success. And really the questions we're going to delve into you with is just to begin with a more broad one. In your experience and learnings, what have been the successes and challenges making this pivot? And to what extent have you been able to take sort of a data-based approach to that? And what have you learned?
I think for us in Kentucky, the Purchase Committee is 36 years old, so high school graduation and moving the needle for high school graduation was really important for us a decade ago, as it was for everyone and so many of them. In more recent years, as there's been a greater focus on college and career readiness, we began to analyze our graduation rates alongside our college and career readiness rates and started talking about a readiness gap, or the effective graduation rate. And that created, I think, that helped push the conversation to the post-secondary space. So are we really preparing kids? Are we really helping them attach? Or are they actually being successful when they attach? And that's the challenge of the conversation today. And I think one of the biggest challenges, while this feels like a blunt instrument, I think in some conversations, this will resonate with all of you, that there isn't, how do we get to a place of shared ownership? In K-12 space, we have accountability models. In the post-secondary space, we really don't have accountability unless it's public accountability for graduation rates in post-secondary. Lots of conversation about quality of degrees, quality of post-secondary experience. So I think that's the next big part of the conversation. How as a state do we get to share ownership for those outcomes when we know that the high school graduation is sufficient, is necessary, but not always sufficient anymore?
I think I would echo that from a California perspective too. We've seen graduation rates move up quite a bit in the last few years in California, and that's been exciting to see. But part of what's surfaced from that is recognizing and realizing that the thread from there to post-secondary success in community college award and a four-year institution has actually frayed. So we've actually seen less success in terms of more kids being able to move into that kind of setting, but less success because we, by and large, the work we've done to improve high school graduation rates has been administrative work. It's been doing things like summer school, extra opportunities to finish credits that kids didn't do well in, and those kinds of support things that haven't necessarily really prepared kids to be successful. They've helped us to feel better about our graduation rates because we got them through high school. So I think that's been kind of the big next step in California is how do we move toward success in post-secondary situations for our kids. And I think some of the challenges that we've encountered and to some degree anyone has some success with, I think initially there's been this mindset, I'm going back 10 years ago or so now, that from our district and school K-12 enterprises, that there's this mindset that our focus is to just get kids to high school graduation, and anything that they do beyond that is on them. And so shifting that to, it really is our responsibility to prepare them for success, not just to be able to exit high school with a diploma has been a big piece. I think other issues have to do with just being able to quantify things. So on the data side, being able to capture data on post-secondary success has been difficult. We've used National Student Clearinghouse data, but that's very limited in what's possible, and to enter into agreements, this great data divide between K-12 and post-secondary has been a difficult challenge for us, but we're working with it. But being able to really get rich data on success after kids matriculate to institute of higher education has been difficult. We can create agreements with one institution or another, but there's hundreds of them in California, so how do we institutionalize that? And of course, the question that Bob's already raised in a couple of studies that we've looked at identified that getting rich data or any real data on career success after or separate from post-secondary success and achieve is difficult.
Before Dan joins, I want to ask a follow-up question. We'll touch on it. Previously, was it expected graduation is used? What was the phrase you used?
We've used the ready graduation rate or the effective graduation.
So what's an effective graduation?
Well, for us, kind of like the effective tax rate. So the effective graduation rate, while leaving kids at their home, were they graduating ready? They weren't really graduating ready based on the indicators that were really low. We were saying I mean, it's an empty number. So the effective graduation rate, those who are actually graduating, is much less than our graduation rate. In Kentucky, we're in the top 10 in the nation. But, you know, maybe 2/3 of those kids are actually ready based on the indicators of readiness.
So I think one way to get the question is that you can do it on a projecting side. You think whether kids leave us, we think they're ready or not. What's that rate? The challenge we're hearing here, and we really have, is that sort of post-secondary success data, right? There's a couple of challenges that even came up in Boston, right? They had to use the class of 2010 to have a long enough ramp to really see what the outcomes were. But the flip side of that is it's 2019 right now, right? And it's people can have this dismissive thing, well, that was 10 years ago. We're a whole different district now, right? If they want, but to get the actual data, you need the long lag, but that has its own problems, right? You were talking about just getting the agreements to even get that long lag data can be a challenge. So other folks have tried, sometimes they take like the existing graduation rates of their post-secondary institutions and project how many of their kids are going to those institutions and use sort of the average graduation rate for those institutions to get like a more intermediate check of where things are. Because it's always that balance between getting that really accurate data, which is essential, you probably need to do it as a baseline, but then getting stuff people see as actionable data. It's probably somewhere between the projection and maybe the current outcomes or the credit. It's a whole area, I think, to explore how to get that kind of data, but in a way that people like see as actionable and are not easily getting dismissed as like that was a decade ago. Or something 10 minutes later and 10 policy shifts. You know, even though it's true then, how do I know it's true now? So I think that's a real part of the puzzle.
Let me just jump in and say, so state level, you may actually, as a portion of the state, be larger than the state, but we're working in Hamilton County at a very much more granular level, and one of the things that we've seen is just how powerful the predictive analytics can actually be with a student and an actual advisor. I think Joanna watched one in action. It really can change the trajectory of the life when students begin to see maybe they don't need to have a 3.8 and a 95% attendance rate. What we've done, I just want to provide a little bit of context because it's a much more narrow focus, but it's sort of at the ground level. Our district has a very powerful multi-relational data hub. I wonder, intermediate, we've been tracking kids year by year who go on to post-secondary since 2004. And the wild part here is Tennessee, in a wonderful backwards way, uses the Social Security number as student ID. So we can actually track students from kindergarten to 4 years after high school, which you can scoff. It's a wonderful capacity, right? And so we were looking for patterns of success in our 4 most challenged high schools. And really, in some ways, this group was a catalyst for us to begin to think, what are the predictive analytics for the kids in those schools. We were incredibly fortunate to run into an endowed chair at a local university who was really interested in big data sets. He's come out of the business community. But again, you put a group of his students on it at those 4 high schools, we found very different numbers at a school level of what predicted success in post-secondary. And so, at its best, what this has happened are conversations where a student may say, I'm not college material, and someone can say, actually, from this high school, with that GPA and that attendance level, or maybe you raise it a little bit, you are not only likely to go, but succeed. And so that's been transformational for some kids. The downside has been, for some people in some of those schools, I think I'm 500 miles from Chattanooga, the power of a limited fixed mindset, it doesn't matter how powerful the predictive analytics are. So that's been really, we're trying to figure out how this works beyond just a few schools, but at the level of a student, it really is changing the conversation. And for the adults who assume, and I have to say, I come back from one of these meetings and we said, 3.8, 95% attendance, if you get that, you're college ready, and the principal on one of the high schools said, great, and I'll give you my 9 kids, right? But when you begin to have a level of each school,
Yeah, so the need to look at this at so many different levels of aggregation, right? We learn different things. I think it's very powerful takeaway from just your experiences. Say to the audience, want to share anything else? I know other folks are working on this issue. Other folks experience making the transition from early learning for high school graduation to post-secondary and some successes or challenges and using the data to drive that. Yeah.
We have a summer melt model that we built for our local school district, which is, we have about 7,000 seniors that graduate every year. So we built the model using 3 years worth of graduation data. We just reran, the district gave us the seniors, this year's seniors in February. We ran a free model, we met again in March. And they were really encouraged because we were able to say, these are the predictions. There's a prediction for each kid on whether or not they'll melt over the summer. They're saying they're going on to college, but then we can also break it down into, we were showing them there were different ways to approach it. Like, if you want to look at the kids that fall in that 15 to 20 ACT score that have missed X number of days from 4 years of high school, so you can look at the ones that really screwed up and have a 90% chance of melting, but maybe you want to start tackling the kids that are that 50 to 70% melt rate. And if we can break it down into smaller and smaller chunks so that, to your point, Dan, when you go to a principal and you say, okay, if you're 400 seniors, 250 of them have a higher than 50% melt rate. Well, okay, then let's try and break it down to a palatable number that your counselor can then say, oh, we're talking about 40 kids that I can move the needle on, that I can get to those 40 kids and get resources into their hands or whatever it's going to take. So anyway, the district got very excited and they want to give us the seniors this coming senior class, the rising seniors. They want us to run the free model this fall, so they'll have a whole school year to work with the kids.
And where are you from? Stephanie. Thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up question about that? So I imagine if you're doing it this summer, calculating the summer melt, you need to know, a student needs to have indicated intentionality. So I'm wondering if you can speak about how at scale you're gathering the data around students' intended post-secondary choice.
So the students in this district have to complete a senior transition survey. It's not 120 questions or whatever you referenced earlier, but they are asked about their intent for the fall. Now, unfortunately, the counselors don't administer that until the beginning of May. So we had to run, we built the model
get down to the school level, it's up to the counselor to say, no, they're in a career technical track, they're gonna be, they're getting a certificate, and they're not going to college, or, they will know who's military, who's career tech. But for this model, for 7,000 kids, we just have this problem. For this model, for 7,000 kids, we just have this problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to throw in a sort of a different question around secondary ed. So all institutions, community college, state college, would staff identify or define satisfactory academic progress, right? So that is an indicator at the post-secondary level. How are we connecting to that, or are we in any way? So that would be something that lets you know, amongst other things, how kids are doing as they're semester by semester is huge on them determining whether next semester.
Right.
So how are we, the student I work with regarding intellectual disabilities, it's not always defined the same as for all the other kids in the institution, but it has to be defined for student recognition, behavior, etc. So what's for us to think about is how are we connecting to that and how are we using that and what's the relationship with that particular indicator, how it's defined by an institution, and then how we might be able to use that as we transition as an EWS in
So it's a very interesting point. It's getting back to the question that started this, is how do we get some metrics that might let us be able to get a good estimate of our kids on the right path that are a little bit closer in time. So what I'm hearing from you is that from your post-secondary institutions, you can get a measure of, are they on track in the post-secondary institution to, they're on pace to succeed. And you can get that relatively early in their post-secondary experience, which can give you an earlier in time indicator of what's happening in the high school. Tying your projected preparation level together with your on pace in the early years of the university, right, gets you to like a couple-year window now. Right? So this is an interesting connection. Were you going to add something?
Just exactly what you just said,
Okay.
Bob, just that we can kind of shorten that time period if we're looking at the readiness, transition, and persistence space. And our Kentucky State Longitudinal Data System, we have Jessica Cunningham with us at this meeting, has been able to run those numbers and releases them, I believe, every year for graduating cohorts. So we're able to look at, of the students that we graduated college and career ready, how many actually persisted in the first year to that 30-year or 30 credit hour.
Are you able to take that advanced level and do it by school?
Jessica? Yeah, yes, by school. Yes, by school, yes.
For us, also by university, which is also really
Yes.
helpful.
Yeah, that's right.
The 1 year retention is the best, rather than waiting 10 years.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, all right, one more, and then
So this is really interesting that you bring up SAT, because in our model, I'm at a four-year institution. Hours completed in the first year and GPA in the first year are really important in success in the second year, but we haven't included SAT in our models. And as soon as, at our institution, we're regional public, as soon as the student loses financial aid, they become very much at risk. So it wouldn't work for year one, but it would definitely work going forward for predicting the success after that. Because, I mean, our students, nearly all of them depend on federal financial aid.
Well, not like that. Every institution is required to find it. So
Yeah.
it is, it's not defined the same way as institutions, but it is defined.
this is the beauty of past and action. We have the Kentucky data idea brought to Dan's school level idea, so they could get the data at the school level, be somewhat powerful. And the connection here to kids' progress, the adding on to their metrics, that's the power of the past. All right, two more than I move on.
So I'm from the National Student Clearinghouse.
Yep.
And I'm on the secondary side, so part of my interest in this question. But when you submit your enrollment, your degree files to us, are you required to flag whether or not the student is having satisfactory academic progress? Did I answer that question for me?
Say the first part again.
So I'm from the National Student Clearinghouse. If you're a Title IV degree granting institution in the nation, you most likely submit data to us about your student enrollments and degrees. If you are familiar with the data submissions that you give to us, are you required or do you flag your students as having satisfactory academic progress?
I don't know if that's.
I don't know.
I'd have to talk to IR.
Okay, I'd asked a couple of colleagues, because if we're getting that data element, then that's a data element we can pass on.
So, or could, and ask people to give you if they want it, right? So it's very, even better, right? Because the National Clearinghouse is your source for many districts, right, too. We get their kids out, when their kids go to many different places, right? Clearinghouse is a place where we get some of that data, especially with high, notice kids going out of state, right? That's very local.
It's definitely part of accreditation and those, metrics that they have to report, so, so I don't think it would clearly be relevant, but whether or not they you guys are, it clearly is part of the accreditation.
Right. There's one more hand I saw, I'm going to move on. Yes.
Going back to again, you mentioned that you collect social security numbers as far as making them their school ID. What happened to those kids? How does that skew your data with the kids that don't have a social security?
First of all, be really clear, we don't collect social security numbers. The district does, and it's all identified and it's legal. I'll be very clear. What you have said is a significant weakness. And as it grows, there are a growing number of students in our district without social security numbers. And they have proxy numbers. They're given a number, obviously the district has to give them a number. So that's how we can continue to track them, but the state uses social security numbers. So it's a challenge. Keith, do you want to add to that?
Sure. We have our reconciliation process as well. So we use the National Student Clearinghouse information and then are able to work with embedded college advisors in each school, and then they allow us to fill in the blanks. So if a student doesn't have a social security number, we still know first, last, middle, date of birth, and there's a personal relationship. If the advisor has a personal relationship with that student, we assign a universal ID that will follow that person, so that way we don't lose them in the mix just because they don't have a social security number. Or, as I put it, they don't have a 9-digit number with an underscore as their primary key. Or social security number.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna pivot us to my second question now. What are the implications of the sort of using EWS 2.0 for post-secondary readiness is that time and time again we get our strongest predictor is this combination of a decent GPA, decent grades, in challenging courses. I'm wondering if any of you have had any experience, I think Dan, you were starting to allude to this, mindset challenges. That argues for relatively radical restructuring of high school, I would argue, right? This notion that our goal is to try to get as many kids as possible, get good grades in challenging classes, smacks against a very long tradition of that's for the kids to do it. It's not for us to manufacture, right? It's it's on the kids, and the kids that do it is great, and we give them opportunities. But we're not really trying, are we, to make sure that all our kids get good grades in challenging classes? Reflections on that? Experiences with that? Problem, not a problem?
Problem. That's definitely an issue. That's definitely a problem, and I alluded to that a little bit earlier too. One of the things that we're looking at doing in the core districts, and we actually have had longitudinal data for several of our districts, and we've done a study of our 9th grade class of 2013, which has now had the chance to matriculate through high school, and from the data that we collected, have moved into their second year in an institute of higher education. So we've been using as a proxy persistence to the second year. But we're actually embarking on some work right now to work with ninth graders at a group of schools in the core districts. We've been able to suss out from our historical data actually 5 levels of readiness for post-secondary success. The highest level, we're calling post-secondary competitive, with the second level being post-secondary promising, a third level being high school graduation, and then a vulnerable group and an at-risk group. So we're actually moving to being able to predict from ninth grade data those 5 different levels. Our challenge and our hope here is that as we move in this direction with a new project with a group of high schools, is to really start to have our ninth grade counselors, our ninth grade teachers looking at the data from the perspective of those 5 different levels, and to consider that to be in the post-secondary competitive or even the post-secondary promising categories, a student is going to need to be able to be both in courses that are challenging and successful in those courses. And so with our goal of increasing or improving the trajectory of our ninth grade students, we're actually hoping that we'll be at the school level with our teachers and with our counselors able to have this conversation about moving kids toward success in their college preparatory courses that they're taking.
Yeah, one thing I would just add, and don't know what I think about it yet, in Tennessee, the state is moving towards an accountability system where it measures the number of students in a high school who have taken 4 episodes. Now, we all need one more, whatever those things are by letters, acronyms, things, early post-secondary opportunities, but it's a measurement of AP course, dual enrollment, earning a certificate. And what that's done is really forced high schools to think about how can we increase the number. Now, an episode isn't necessarily synonymous with rigor, but it is something with a post-secondary value. And in the 4 high schools that we're working with, sort of the immediate step is not only to review the courses for rigor, but also can we increase the number of dual enrollment courses, AP courses, courses that lead to a certificate with value in the local economy. And those are all sort of steps that are taken. But at the core, we think the issues around cultural competence and fixed mindset and social emotional learning, if you don't address those as well, we're not sure where it's all going to go. But anyhow, that's sort of on the ground reaction to it.
I'll just underscore what both of you just shared and add that I think, yes, the answer to your question, it's absolutely yes. And I think that's where the power lies as we think about different phases of this work. In Kentucky, we've had, I think we've been meeting for 2 years here at Johns Hopkins University, and we've had a good core group of at least 5 to 7 of us, I think, from different sectors, nonprofit as well as schools and districts and community-based organizations. And so what we've done is we've gone back with the support of our state longitudinal database and replicated the report that Bob mentioned to see if our data, if it says the same sort of thing, and what it can tell us. And Jessica can share more about that. As we learn about those things and we find out, yes, that course grades are in fact predictive, then what are the responses at the community level? And that's where I'd like to see us be able to go in phase 2, phase 3 of the work, is to better understand the community supports that are in place to stem chronic absenteeism, to support higher course grades. It's the root causes. And then how do we begin to marry that community level data? We have Berea College in the room with us today, and they have a rich footprint in Appalachia. So how do we begin to marry the rich data that they're collecting with the state longitudinal database data to better understand the supports that are provided to students to increase the outcomes that we know are predictive of success? And so that will be phase 2, phase 3 of our work over the next year or so. That's our hope. And that's what we're excited about.
So yeah, it's just really interesting, right? Once you get to the good grade, it brings everything else in, right? If you get a good grade, you gotta be there. You gotta be able to focus in class, able to get your work done, right? Which brings in a whole host of other areas from both your own agency to the supports you need for complications in your life. So it may seem as innocuous or challenging door, but it's a door to a lot of like larger issues at systematic level.
I think we know, and we say, our schools can't get the job done by themselves between 8 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, 9 months a year. So we're missing a better understanding of all those supports around the root causes.
All right, a couple of comments from the audience. I'll come back and go over there for a second.
Yeah, I had a point related to that, which is what is the role of the out-of-school space? And I imagine that there are some issues with connecting data, because that's always the issue, because they don't have the social security numbers, all of those things. But there's the National College Access Network. I'm wondering if anybody has ties with them. I'm working with them right now to come up with a standardized set of data. And so that might be something, because they're nationwide, that maybe somebody would be interested in learning more about.
Very interested in that. Yes.
I know there's some other folks in the room that are working on this, like, is the roadmap district here, like divisions, like uplift folks. I know a lot of folks have put a lot of time into just how you get kids to get better grades at sort of a systematic level.
One of the things we've got to do today is to articulate the expectation. So knowing that this is going to be the first step for us, we actually hire coordinators. And we look at ABC data for all of our 8th graders that you're going to high school next year. And we look at transition camp for the summer for about 25%. Because if we raise the expectation and we don't support the problem, then the graduation rates on the problem, everybody going to be upset. One of the things we struggle with is we can solely manage the about 25% is from an instructional perspective. If the kids come with a team and if they're doing the work, but if the instructor doesn't have the cognitive piece to articulate it the way it should be, you still want to have a gap there. And so we use physical science classes, economics classes, and trying to find the instructor that can provide that solid instruction. So I think sometimes, because we want to be supportive, we forget that most important piece, which is the instruction that occurs in the classroom. So for us, we're trying to figure out how do we align all of it. And we might get it right when one comes in, and this is the students, and I get it right with students, and this is the comes in. They're trying to be related proposition for us.
Tell them where you're from.
Georgia.
If I could just respond really quickly to that, I think that's a really important point. I think of it as like good first teaching. And I think that any solution that we move toward in our districts and in our networks has to be paying attention to that as well. I think there's a risk if we move in the direction only of administrative solutions. And when I say that, I mean things like, pressure to give good grades or eliminating non-challenging courses out of the curriculum so that every kid has, those are all things we need to be paying attention to administratively. But that kind of action only will increase the divide between teachers feeling like they're working hard to provide an education, and then it seems like whatever the district's just letting kids go to this independent study class and get credit, or eliminating courses that make it seem like everybody's taking a challenging curriculum. And we really need to work on both the good first teaching and the administrative solutions together.
Good morning. I was just listening, and I was just with our 9th grade teams in our district. We have 4 or 5 9th grade teams, and we were looking at discipline data, exclusionary discipline. And the teams were stunned to see that when they started looking at their discipline data, that their discipline policies, I know the districts are planning changes, but their discipline policies are tied to non-attendance. And so they were stunned to see that the top 4 reasons for exclusionary discipline were because kids just had chronic absenteeism and they kept getting referred to in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension. So then they started doing a root cause analysis of that and decided to do empathy interviews. And what they found was right, I just want to emphasize the point that we often focus on discipline or attendance. Yeah, they got to be there so that we can teach them. Well, why aren't they there in the first place?
Thank you, Lord.
And the reason why they're not there in the first place, particularly at the high school and increasingly at the middle school level, has much more to do with our culturally responsive practices in the classroom. And both the standards of instruction, so the quality of the core instruction, but also that engaging instruction, making it relevant, making it hands-on, making it problem-based, and doing some of that, giving some of that control over to our students, which then does help them become college and career ready because we're preparing them to be independent. So I think that I keep coming back to how are we, I don't know if it's so much about grading, because there's a lot we could get into around equitable grading practices, but I know it's a proxy, so it's the data we have, but I really come back to what are we doing to center culturally engaging, rigorous instruction at the core, because that then impacts attendance, which in some districts, in mine, unfortunately, impacts exclusionary discipline, and that's where that bottom 25%, you're never going to get there unless we go back to that.
That was very, very well said, thank you. And it reminds me of what someone else said, that just, in a nutshell, they seem simple, but I think it really captures a lot of underlying truth and tension, which is that for kids to do good at school, school has got to be good for them, right? It's just, you can't just sort of say that no matter what the circumstances, just do well, right? Because sometimes those circumstances either make it impossible to do well or very discouraging to do well, right? And then it's just easy to sort of put it back on the kid and say, do well or else, or it's on you, when oftentimes it's about making sure the school's good for the kids so they can be good at school. It's a sort of two-way dialectic. One more comment before then we're open up this table talk question. Anyone want to add anything to our discussion? Anyone on the panel?
Bob, you had one question about community college.
Yeah.
So I was just, if I could just call Jessica to kind of respond to what we found in what they found, what KY Stats found in the replication of this with respect to 2-year.
Oh, okay. So, I'm gonna, can you guys hear me? So basically what we did is we tried to replicate your work for Kentucky across the state in the 2-year and 4-year institutions. And basically what we found is that we did validate kind of the same findings that you found in your paper for the state of Kentucky, especially for 4 years. But for the 2-year case, it looked much different when you're talking about persistence. So for example, if they enroll in a 2-year institution, they can earn a credential within a semester or 2 credentials within 2 semesters at a 2-year institution. And so we're really talking about in our state of how do we really define persistence for a 2-year institution and what that means in that predictive analytics space.
Right.
So we're trying to look at that now. Some of what we think we hear has to do with the student's experience in the institution and the roadblocks and the stumbles along the way. It's not quite as simple as the GPA or the ACT or the attendance. It's actually their lived experience of pretty fragile kids who go to our 2-year institutions. And so it's not as easily quantitative, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, so 2 interesting points there was at the beginning. Just a reminder of the question, Bob, which is, what are we learning about 2-year institutions? And the point here was that you have to define what you need. Is it just an AA degree? There's other different places and different times get different levels of degree, so it's a more complicated question. And once you disaggregate that, you might find a different answer. And that's what we put in. This was one place, one time, one city. You can't overgeneralize. But it's really great that you're able to sort of replicate at a state level and find added stuff. That's the past way, right? We need to keep adding more richness to the story. And totally agree with you, right? It's so much of this is about the lived experience in that 2-year space, both the kids' lives and the institution. And a lot of it is about both some institutional changes and understanding that the degree of student support might be different. And that really speaks to the fact that, at least in Boston, other places, we found very few kids doing the archetypal traditional pathway, right in, straight through, without interruption. Interruption was the norm, which is just a different environment. Okay, what I'd like to do now, we have a few minutes left before our break, is give you a chance to talk to your neighbors and get to know them. Maybe some of you are sitting at your table with your good friends and get to know them better. And I want just to talk at the table a little bit about this bigger idea of how we're moving on, is disseminating some of these ideas of moving early warning, to focus on high school graduation and post-secondary success, and the challenge that takes, the needs to use data, the complications of using data, of getting data, this idea of how we get kids to, take challenging courses and do okay on them, and what does that mean about when we think about the kids' expectations, but also what the schools have to do differently. All those things come together with this bigger question of, if we want to spread this idea widely, we try to make a case in the beginning of the session that's important to do, who needs to be convinced of what? Right? For us to wake up in 10 years and say, this is now the norm, it's standard practice. Who would need to be convinced of why? Your locale where you live, or more broadly, and just thinking of your experiences. For this to go from where it is, which is sort of some early adopters, to more widespread use, who do we have to convince of why? Take about 10 minutes to talk with your group, and then we'll just bring ourselves together.